during the 80s, there was still that continuous scare of communism, and this was, of course, still the Cold War, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So America was supporting any country that was pro-capitalism or against communism. So therefore, we supported Arena. It was founded by Roberto de Agustion, and it is this party that was empowered during the massacres, and they have been known to be the ones who led the massacres and the injustices going on in El Salvador. And this year, their candidate was Rodrigo Avila.
So for opposition party FMLN, you see it, rise a little bit more in the 80s, although the history of the opposition against the party that's been supported by the U.S. government with capitalistic neoliberal ideas definitely has its beginnings, as a guerrilla, worker. So, Faramundo Martí was, of course, the founder of FMLN, back in the 30s. And the candidate for 2009 was Mauricio Funes, a reporter with no ties back to back in the 80s, but his vice president, Sanchez Serén, was part of the guerrillas in the 80s. So we definitely see the rise of Mauricio Funes. We actually got there a little bit before the election. And Mauricio Funes, FMLN was a little bit, they didn't have a lot of money in the campaign. So, you can see the differences right away. You had Arena, really, the radio stations before the last final close to the campaign, while, FMLN was trying to, get his support by, again, doing this grassroots, as we saw in Obama in 2008 here in the U.S.
So why was this election important? First of all, politically, it's very important. For a country that wants to move into democracy, you need to see a change of party. And within El Salvador, there had not been a change of party within the past 20 years. So a change, any kind of change is good. And that was important for El Salvador. Economical change. Under Arena, El Salvador had changed from the colon to the dollar. So they had become a dollar economy. And it may sound good in terms of their GDP, but it did not help the poor. The poor, it just made it harder for them to buy simple groceries at the store, and now it's something that could have only cost, 50 colons cost $1, which is something they could not afford. And it also was also hope for change, a better future. The El Salvadorians have been people who have been lied to, have been run by the elites. And so a change, the FMLN meant a hope for someone who would fight for them, for the people, and not just for the elites.
And we see it like the step to heal of the past of the 80s, of the massacres, of the martyrs, the people that are mainly poor people that have been under this 20-year rule of that their support for neoliberal reform, no support for the poor that are struggling to even have a normal wage. Definitely we see the rise again when we went to El Salvador, the images of Romero and the images of hope were hand in hand with people definitely supporting FMLN, because it meant that it meant a 20-year administration broken for sure, and seeing the political shift that we're seeing in Latin America, it's a political shift that you don't brand it with communism, but you brand it with change as far as like the voice of the poor are included, with the voice of the rich. So definitely when it comes even recent, with the district peace commemorated by President Funes, that's a major change for people to see in their administration.
So the election observation, our training was conducted by the Tribunal Supremo Electoral, which is kind of, we don't know how to take that because it's a tribunal that's run by Arena, but we know better than to just take things as it is. So observers came from all over the world. We had people from Italy and Asia, but the majority of the election observers were from the U.S.
Well, the observation duties, we had 1 day of observation training, which was from like 6 in the morning until 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So, people were much pretty tired, but they had a pretty, emphasis on looking out for fraud, preventing tampering, bribery. There was not a lot of cases, like looking out for people that were being busted from Nicaragua, from Guatemala to vote in the Salvador elections. So that was definitely something that we had to look out for. For the first time, people had to have a DUI card, which is like an identification card that had their name, their address, and by that they were identifying where they had to go. Like they had their official precinct. So once they went to go and show that to the volunteers that were serving as helping out for the election, they knew already what precinct they had to go by the DUI card they had, mainly because of the address where they lived. And the DUI card kind of resembles what Mexico did during when the PRI fell after 72 years of ruling. They had the credencial electoral in Mexico. That's when the PRI fell and the PAN rise again. So we can definitely see a little mirror reflection of that.
And we also have to look out to see if we're using DUI cards of those who were recently deceased. And a lot of the printouts they had put outside were printed out maybe 6 months before the elections. Therefore, if someone had died after that time, we have to look to make sure that this person was actually alive as a real person. So things like those kinds of things we have to look for in our observation duties. So we actually, during the election observer training, they set it up so that we would see what it was like. And it wasn't a long, it was a strange process for us as American voters, because we just punch and go. But for them, there was a real system of checking each other. And at each station, there's 4 people, and 2 from the Arena Party and 2 from the FMLN. So you can't cheat on each other.
Some of the pictures from that is from the election observation training, and we had to know the names of the people that were going to volunteer. You had the president, you have us, and this was all volunteers. You have somebody calling the president, secretary that would hand out the votes to people, and what we call vigilantes, each one from each party, from both Arena and FMLN. So the actual voting process it was very tedious, and when we first saw the process, we thought, my God, this is going to go on forever, because a lot of people were expected to show up in the polls and vote. First, volunteers were broken up by their role. Again, Presidente, Secretary, Vigilante, and Jefe de Centro. Jefe de Centro was the main person that was in control of that. In case of any minor incidents, that would be the first person to go to and tell them about what was going on. So Jefe de Centro, it was 1 for Arena, 1 for FMLN, Vigilante, 1 for FMLN, 1 for Arena, and President Secretary could be either party.
And so they were all given ballots. The neat thing about the ballots is that it was really simple. Is that you had one flag, and then that's who you voted for, and you put an X over it. So this eliminated, this was able to include people who are illiterate and they could still vote. So that in itself kind of made their election process more democratic. Therefore, a lot of people were able to vote. In other words, it also made it easier for people who were also confused for someone to come up and say, hey, vote for this flag. So, but the ballot itself was unique in that, here in America we vote, but you have to be able to you have to know your issues, you have to know who you're voting for, you have to be able to read. So this was a unique way of voting. So Karina's going to discuss her.
So from Mount St. Mary's, we were 6 students, and each of us were broken up. There was 2 that were left in San Salvador City, and most of us went to rural communities. I went to San Pedro de Lopán, in one of the districts at Espino. That's where